nationally in an effort of providing equal opportunities to all community groups for attaining access to affordable, livable, and healthy houses. In terms of the implementation time, the substantives to be discussed in this seminar can be important input for preparing the medium-term national housing development policies and strategies for 2020-2024. By bearing in mind the above mentioned strategic value, I am so honored to be given the opportunity to convey my view, information and policies in this important forum. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the theme of sustainable housing provision, there are four main aspects that I want to elaborate here, namely the urgency of sustainable housing, the concept of sustainable housing and national housing policy, the implementation of sustainable housing concept in housing provision, and follow-up action plan in making the most of internalization of the sustainable housing concept, both at the policy and development stages. Sustainable housing is an effort to efficiently utilize resources in the process of providing housing to make available optimal benefit to the four aspects through the following action: improve the quality of social activities and housing environment, support the economic activities development of the community, avoid the emergence of externality and degradation of environmental quality, and support the integration of housing development with the entire region system activities. Therefore, the housing development that is taking into account the economic, social, environmental, and integrated aspect of regional system is expected to be able to create a livable, safe, and healthy housing environment. Ladies and gentlemen, basically, sustainable housing concept is not a new thing in housing provision policy in Indonesia, as it has been explicitly contained in the basic regulation of housing sector, namely the 1945 Constitution and the Law Number 1, 2011 on housing and human settlements. There are three key variables that have to be taken into account in the housing provision process, namely location, design, and community participation. Firstly, the location of housing development should be in line and harmonious with the predetermined spatial planning in order to avoid space utilization conflicts, disaster vulnerability, ensure the supporting infrastructure feasibility, and optimize synergy with regional activities. Currently, local governments are preparing spatial utilization plan in the form of local spatial plan or detailed spatial plan, as well as the housing and settlement area development plan document. We call it RB3KP. As a basic instrument for the implementation, including housing provision. Secondly, building design focus on optimizing natural lighting and air circulation to reduce energy consumption, improve energy efficiency, provide space for social interaction, provide green open space, accommodate the needs of disabled people, and consider the use of local resources. Furthermore, the implementation of design concept that is more adaptive to disasters, such as the use of steel house design in flood-prone area, has also been implemented. Moreover, instant house technology innovations are also utilized to streamline the construction process. Thirdly, improve the participation of the community in the process of housing provision, and the maintenance or improvement of the physical quality of the houses. Participants, ladies and gentlemen, in a broader perspective, the process of housing provision is also involving many other stakeholders, such as local government, private sector, professional association, and academicians or researchers through local government organization or local housing and settlement working group. We call it Pokja PKP, Kelompok Kerja Permukiman dan Kawasan Perumahan dan Kawasan Permukiman. At this moment, the role of non-government stakeholders is quite dominant in the process of providing housing, as around 80% of housing supply is produced by the development carried out by the community itself. In this context, the government's role is highly needed to optimize the stakeholders' synergy and improve stakeholders' awareness towards the sustainable housing concept. At this point in time, medium-term policy and strategies of the housing provision for the period of 2020-2024 is being formulated. The policy to be developed will accommodate the concept of sustainable housing that is in line with the new urban agenda document and the sustainable development goals, as well as the green building concept that has been set in the form of regulation of the Minister of Public Works and Housing. In this respect, there are some actions that we must pay a good attention to, such as prioritizing the process of stakeholders' participation in housing provision, improve the capability of low-income community to access affordable housing, either by owning or renting, supporting the provision of housing, especially for low-income community, reducing the climate change impact, improving the efficiency of energy utilization, increasing public access to basic services that support the housing settlements, especially for water and sanitation, supporting the development of growing core house, and effort to reduce slum areas. More to the point, we recommend that following actions to be taken into account the process of housing provision. First, database. The preparation of database by all local government to find out the scale and characteristic of the problems to be addressed. The second is planning. The preparation of planning document in the form of housing and settlement area development plan by the local government as a basic reference for the stakeholders and carrying out housing development activities. Third, collaboration. Optimizing the existence of housing and settlement area working groups or Pokja PKP in local government level. Fourth, financing. Increasing the allocation of local development budget, non-government budget, public-private partnership for addressing housing issues. Fifth, the regulation. Adopting housing regulation that ensure health, safety, and security through the establishment of building codes consistent with the minimum standard, provide safety from natural hazard and disease. Participants, ladies and gentlemen, those are some issues that I can put into words in this opportunity. Their constructive responses are expected to be able to enrich the discussion substances and open our horizon to accelerate the implementation of sustainable housing provision in Indonesia. Finally, the Directorate General of Housing Provision is fully committed in assuring the improvement of housing policies to achieve comprehensive sustainable development goals target healthy and comfortable living condition. Thank you very much. Om Shanti 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 Om. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Bapak Insinyur Dwityo Akoro Suranto MU RP. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the second keynote speech is about design resilience in Asia program. So we would like to invite Professor Dr. Lam Kipu from National University of Singapore, and the moderator of this session is Professor Dr. Andreas Wibowo, MSc. Kita berikan tepuk tangan. And the third keynote speech for today is about planning for affordable housing and mixed neighborhoods. So we would like to invite Professor Dr. Robin Goodman from RMIT University Australia. Please come up to the stage. Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Andreas Wibowo, and I'm from University for Netherlands. So my name is Andreas Wibowo from Research for Human Central Ministry of Public Affairs and Housing, and I will be the moderator for this session. So among us, there are two prominent speakers from different institutions and different backgrounds. The first speaker is Professor Ki Lam from National University of Singapore, and the second presenter is Professor Robin Goodman from Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, Australia. Is it? Okay. Before we start this session, let me first introduce in more details by reading the CV of our two speakers. Professor Ki Lam, he has academic and professional qualification as follows. He completed PhD from Kennedy, United States in 1994, and he completed Bachelor of Architecture at the University of Nottingham, UK with honors 1982. Also Bachelor of Arts from the same university, UK, and the 79. He has a long list of accomplishments that maybe I don't have any time to read the detailed accomplishments from Professor Lam. The second speaker is Professor Robin Goodman. She is from Royal Melbourne University. She also has a very long publication. Maybe the most recent is from 2018 with the title Growing Pains for the Livable City, published in Planning Australia, published in August, Melbourne, Australia, because we only have 90 minutes actually. So according to our schedule, we have to complete at 12. So let me propose that this presentation will be allocated about 30 minutes for presentation, and once all the speakers have finished with the presentation, we will proceed to the discussion for about 30 minutes. I hope this can be accepted. So, Mr. Lam, your time is 30 minutes, so time is now yours.
Well, this is good. Oops. Down here and see if that works. Wow, very close. Okay. I should just stand down here. Now, I think we should be okay, right? It's not okay then. Yeah, maybe you can help me change. Let's see. Something else? Maybe you can help me change. How about that? I will just say next slide, and you can just press the down button. Well, very good morning, honorable members of the ministry, and also distinguished colleagues from all the sponsoring, organizing committees of the university. Thank you very, very much for inviting me, especially Beta. Where's Beta? I'm not Matthias, as you can tell, although that's the name in your program. I hope I can do a good job, and I'm sort of as a replacement for Professor Matthias. I was here in Indonesia, in Bandung, actually 3 weeks ago on a Smart City conference. That's where I met Beta for the first time. And so I didn't expect this call at the very last minute to say, can you come give the talk? This really reminded me of my first experience as a young lecturer when I first came back from the UK, where I did my architecture studies, and then I practiced in UK for several years, and I decided to come back to Asia and thirdly to Singapore and US to become a young lecturer. This was 32 years ago. And one day, my boss called me up. He said, Mr. Lam, there's a conference in Chicago, US, organized by the Council of Tall Building and Urban Habitat. Some of you may be familiar with that organization. And I was very excited. I'm an architect by training. I have never, ever presented anything, anywhere. Never written a paper, never done research, ever. And I thought going to this conference would be a great introduction for me as an architect to this area of research. And so I happily said, sure, I'd love to go. But that was all I was told at that time. I've never been to the US at that point, so it's very exciting. Although it's in the middle of winter, it's in January, not like here, it's so beautiful. It's freezing and great snowstorm. Never mind about that, but about 10 days before the conference, my boss called me up and said, Mr. Lam, where's your paper? I said, what paper? He said, you're supposed to deliver a paper. I said, you never told me that. You just say go and attend. And I panicked because I've never, ever done a paper in my life. And I said, oh my God, I've only 10 days to prepare. Actually, I got very nervous, really serious, because the Council of Top Building is a big conference. So I went to see the dean. The dean was very nice. And the dean said, don't panic, take it easy. Just do whatever you can. And so I did, and I said, what can I do in that very short time to prepare a paper? And at that moment in time, Singapore has just celebrated the public housing. You know, Singapore HDB, Housing and Board, have just celebrated 25 years of its establishment. HDB was established in the early years, even before independence, after as a follow-up from the British colonial times. Was set up in 1960, and in 1986 it just celebrated 25 years. And because of that celebration, there was a lot of information, a lot of publications, a lot of research being presented. So I was able to get hold of that information and that data very easily. So I worked very, very, I've never worked so hard in my life. Within those few days, put together a paper. Flew to Chicago, presented it, and to my surprise, it was very well received. Just like we have here, paper submitted and you go into a proceeding. My paper was submitted and was selected to be published in the second century of the skyscraper monograph. So that was a great encouragement for me as a young, inexperienced lecturer. So I know some of you are in various stages of your development of your career. I hope this will be encouragement for you. But it is hard work. I was thrown into the deep end, as it were, and tried to swim and try to float. It worked out okay. And the rest is history. And I've been doing this now for 32 years, 34 years. So that encouragement to me was very good. So when Petra asked me to come and talk about this, this is really not my core area of work personally, but of course I have done this kind of work over my career span in the last 30 years. I've worked in China during the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, those of you remember, where thousands of people died, including children in schools. And I wanted to be there and be part of that rebuilding. So I spent actually almost a year on visits to help them rebuild the schools specifically, and at the same time make them sustainable. Because it's not just about the structural integrity for earthquake, but we also want to use that opportunity to do green schools. So one of my schools that I was helping to design became the first certified green school in China. And the design guide that we developed for that school became a provincial standard for green school development. So it's also something that I did. Another one that I particularly worked on was the Eco City in Tianjin. Some of you may know that China and Singapore has a G2G relationship in developing sustainable development, and the Tianjin Eco City was one of those. And I did a project, a residential project there as well. So there are just bits and pieces of work that I have done that particularly is of interest to me based on the title of your seminar topic of tropical and eco. These are the themes that are particularly close to my heart. So I said yes, I will try and come and share a little something next. So yeah, this is the program which I will elaborate on. I won't talk much about projects, but rather some fundamental principles that I have been using in my work, the team that I work with, and then lead on to the educational component. I want to emphasize the educational component of this work for this particular presentation. Okay? So, I came across this very interesting article called Adaptability and Relativity, a story of Darwin, Einstein, and the shark. You know who Darwin is, you know who Einstein is. You may not know who the shark is. How many know who the shark is? He's a very famous American basketball player. Okay? He's the top leading scorer of goals. And in that article, they talked about these issues of, human existence and human ability to adapt and human ability to take risks. And he actually, one of the things he did was he said, I'm going to donate 20 billion US for anybody who can throw the basketball from mid-court and score. You get $20 billion. One try. If you don't succeed, you have to agree to go to prison for the rest of your life. What a challenge. Now, think about that, alright? What is our response? How do we, as people, as human beings, respond to something like that? Anyway, the point that I picked up from that article is what Charles Darwin has said. It is not the most intellectual species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives. But the species that survives is the one that is able to adapt to and to adjust best to the changing environment in which it finds itself. This is one of those sayings that remain true all the time, whether it's 50 years ago or today. Change is constant in our world. And the survival of any society, any community, really depends on this ability to adapt and adjust. And we are talking about very, very different types of environments and conditions, of course, around the world, from the very developed to the developing. But whatever the condition is, and whatever the geographical and social and political and geographical location is, we have to face very, very similar challenges fundamentally. So this is the kind of thinking that I hope we can all begin to put thoughts to as we discuss the development of methods and techniques and design and so on for this kind of sustainability of our built environment. So next. What I mean by adaptability, the Eskimo ice house. First of all, I can never sort of understand why would people live in an environment like that, right? Now, there must be culture, there must be family ties, there must be history that they continue to say, that's our life, that's where we want to make our community. And they adapt, all right? You look at the kind of conditions that they are subjected to. Outdoor, minus 30 degrees. I mean, if you go out, if you are exposed, you can die immediately. I mean, it's that serious, right? It's instant. And yet, they are able to adapt to that kind of amazingly difficult conditions using the natural material that is plentiful, which is ice, right, as a thermal mass and as a building envelope for their buildings. They don't have to go and ship materials from around the world. They just pick it up, build it in, and look at the temperature inside. This is practically summer for them, right? Look at the delta T. It's 30 degrees delta T. Even now, outside it is what? 30. What's the temperature outside now? 34. In here is 23. Right? Maybe 24. Maybe a bit more. So we are talking about delta T of 10, maybe. That delta T of 30. Okay? And they survive. You can live at 0 degrees. You won't die. That's the point. Right? It's all about ingenuity, adaptability. And this condition, this kind of mindset, this kind of thinking is in all different cultures. Next. Same thing in the hot, dry kind of desert conditions, Egypt, so on, Sahara deserts, right? You look at the kind of surface temperature of the construction and the outdoor air temperature. But yet, because of the use of the indigenous material, right, this earth material, you are able to look at the indoor temperature incredibly constant, even though the outside is going crazy. And I think that's another lesson that we can and should use and not be distracted by technology. To me, this is really high tech and high science. To understand temperature and its behavior and its interaction with materials and construction. This is science. This is not just, tradition. So we need to actually begin to understand this in order to build the kind of goals that we want to. Next, same thing in China. Earth architecture, right? People building, digging into the hills. And you look at the ground temperature, the most sort of relatively constant when you are 12 feet below ground, the temperature is actually pretty good, hovering around 62 degrees Fahrenheit in this case, right? So these are the kind of conditions that people adapt to. They don't have high tech, they don't have lots of research, so-called, at that time, but over the years, they learned through empirical understanding. Today we have research, we have all kinds of measurement tools and technology. We should be able to learn from this in a much more systematic way. Next. Our own kampong house, right? I know it's very difficult if you were trying to sell this idea to young people, say no, we don't want to live in kampong houses. I understand. There is something about development, about progress. Now, again, we understand, the conditioning in terms of the tropicality does not really vary in terms of the temperature and the humidity. However, I want to particularly point out again this surface temperature, this green line. Because the floor is elevated, there's ventilation at the bottom, it's all using timber, the surface temperature is much lower, the green line. And the idea of thermal comfort, that's why staying in this kind of kampong house is comfortable, relatively speaking, because the surface temperatures are lower compared to our bricks and concrete structure, where even though our air temperature might be acceptable, but the surfaces are so hot, they radiate heat and make us feel very uncomfortable. That's one of those conditions and criteria that people sometimes overlook. And in our advanced thinking about tropical design and tropical architecture, these are the fundamentals that we should need to pay attention to. Next. I made this point when I was in Bandung. I love this quote by Christopher Alexander. So when you build a thing, you cannot really build it in isolation, but you must repair the world. Everything we do, not only for yourself or the project that you are working on, what contribution did you make to the surrounding? Are you improving the surrounding? So that the surrounding and your contribution, your specific project, is much more integrated. Now, I know this is very difficult to argue in the economic sense, particularly if you're a private sector developer. No, my boundary is here. Why should I care what happens next door, right? So long I can build mine and I can rent it or sell it, make money, that's my goal. But what happens to your neighbor? Right? I think that's why the important role of education, of government policies are so critical. The Singapore Housing Board and the high-rise, high-density development of public housing would never have worked without that kind of leadership, that kind of political will to drive it. Nobody actually believed that it could work in those days. But today, the evidence speaks for itself. Right? One of the very rare examples in the world where high-rise public housing actually work. Even though the definition of public housing is not the traditional definition of public housing. That's a different discussion. So, in thinking about this, we have a program at NUS, particularly the Department of Architecture, called Designing Resilience in Asia program. It's primarily a program that brings together thought leaders as well as students to come together in a setting like this to actually discuss, debate, and also to do some design competition work. And the model of that setup was based on anticipating, preventing, and preparing for these effects of change. And need to assume that active responsibility to return the original environment. So you see, it draws some of the elements of what Christopher Alexander was talking about, and to adapt to those impacts, and to mitigate. Yes, we cannot necessarily solve everything perfectly, 100% all the time, but at least we lessen, we mitigate, reduce those risks or those conditions as much as we can. So that's the model under this program, which I will elaborate upon in a minute. Next. This is a report that just came out of the World Economic Forum a few months ago. A few months ago. And I think just now, Mr. talked about the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah? So this is about agile cities, another word for resilient, another word for adaptable, right? Agile cities. And this agile city report in chapter 1, if you click again, there is a paragraph in there. There's this paragraph here which you cannot read, and I will amplify it for you. And this is what it says. Agile cities embrace the concept of full building performance, which evaluates building performance based on 6 core categories of design: spatial, acoustic, visual, thermal, indoor quality, and building integrity. Just 2 words I need to particularly highlight because it's not normally used. Visual has to do with the lighting environment, and this building integrity has to do with the maintainability, the ability to subject to all this potential wind and tsunamis and floods and so on. From those extremes to the everyday usage, how do you maintain this in order to keep that building in serviceable and good working condition? So those are the 6 performance mandates that lead on to, of course, all the objectives of carbon reduction, energy independence, health, integrating with urban infrastructure, real-time performance monitoring. These are all potential research things that we must continue to do, and systems of interoperability, the ability to share data, for example. So that's in the report, and the reason that it's in the report is that my former PhD student was a fellow at the World Economic Forum, and he said, I got a chance to put this in, and really actually accepted that. So we're very pleased. The fact that this idea is not new, again, as has been presented earlier, there's really nothing particularly new under the sun in terms of the thoughts and the ideas. Next. This concept of total building performance has been around for 30 years. This is part of what motivated my own PhD work at Carnegie Mellon University. An idea that was established back in the early 80s. We call it total building performance and diagnostics. And since then, everything that I do and the teams that I work with do stick with this very fundamental framework to keep us continuously thinking in a holistic way. We have to deal with structure, envelope, we have to deal with interior systems, mechanical, electrical, and also landscape, very important. At the same time, why are we doing all this professionally is to deliver 6 performance mandates that I mentioned, right? Space, thermal, indoor air quality, visual, acoustics, and building integrity. Why are we doing all this? Is this just to meet fire regulations or meet building regulations? Yes, in a way. However, more importantly, it's about this. That's why we are building. It's about the people. And this point has been made many, many times. The physiological, that means the physical state of our people, of the inhabitants, Psychological, very important. We don't pay enough attention to that. And that actually has a lot of other spin-offs in terms of the human behavior, right? How we behave, how we act as an individual and as a community. Sociological, a point that has been made. Work has started, but a lot more can be done. Of course, everybody knows it's about money. It's all about money and making it work. So that's ultimately what the real goal is, the people's benefit. So this is a framework that I, as I said, have been using for individual building projects all the way to sort of planning and district development. Again, relevant. I'm glad the World Economic Forum picked it up. And it's also in Singapore, I serve on several panels, and this is also an idea that the Singapore government is also embracing. So, there are many papers written about this. If you're interested, you can always Google and read more about that. Okay, next. That's the link, of course, is that as you look at those level of integration and details, you've got to tie back to the overall, what I call total environmental performance, right? There is the bigger picture, of course. And there's the water, energy, food, soil, and all that. It is necessary to work continuously and expand our collaborative effort into those different areas as part of the agenda that we have set up. Of course, it is very difficult. It is, people are not used to working together like this. The hope as educators, certainly for me, is that we train the next generation of the young professionals to realize this. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So we have a very important mission, we as an education. Okay, next. So that leads us to this particular program that at NUS it was set up. It was first launched in 2014. It was one of those flagship initiatives in the School of Design and Environment, whereby I'm the dean. It started before I came back to the NUS in 2016. So this program has been around to basically promote, right, and foster this research and discussion about resilience and sustainability in response to climate change, and looking at urban architectural design and innovation. So it's very much aligned to what I said earlier about urban building performance and analysis. Next. So it is an international network that's important to learn from each other. Researchers, designers, architects, planners, partners from 15 schools of architecture from Asia, Australia, Europe, and North America. From Indonesia, IT Bandung, ITB, has been participating in this program from the very beginning. Anybody from ITB? Okay, you are aware of this program. You? Yes, good. So ITB has been there every year, and in fact, this year they won an award for their student project. Alright, next. So the aims are to basically propose water management solutions, social, environmental, economic responsibility, and then help to build a stronger, sustainable future by working together, contributing to environmental recovery. Again, remember the phrase by Mr. Alexander. Okay, so those are the aims of the program. Next. And it has several components, this program. There is a component, as I said, is annually organized, and so far it's always been in the US. However, the team has been discussing that we should really move this activity across our member countries. So I'm looking forward to someone else hosting it and taking this on and rotating it around, particularly within the ASEAN region. Okay. So that's something that we want to continue to look forward to. And these are the activities. There's always a panel of discussion. As we have here, we invite well-known people to come and talk. And these folks also serve as the judges for the design competition of the students. Okay. So here are some of the speakers, Van, Louis, and so on, symposium speakers. And then the next one, we have people. So these are very valuable people who've done amazing work in so we also introduced an open competition, meaning besides the student competition, this is open to practice, to professional practitioners. And again, based on water and other sort of resilient introduction to the local conditions, students, architects, urban designers, NGOs, all over the world are invited. So it's quite amazing. We had very, very good response to this open design competition. People actually submit solutions to us. Over 150 submissions. I know that I was saying a lot of work here too. It's a lot of work there too. So that's the competition, and this is one of the hostess and very nice and these are the key. Next. And these are the sponsors of the project. Note that you probably know Stephen Biali from Indonesia. They've been a very steady supporter of this work. So we really thank you for that. Next. Right, and then there's the international symposium numbers. As you can see, over 800 people have attending, participating, speaking, etc. And in 2018, we had reduced 1,000. So actually, it's a really, really important and fun topic that people are interested. Various firms have been supporting us. And 160 master students from different programs, 500 undergraduate students have participated over the last 4 years. So really encourage, colleagues here to participate, think about this, and send students. And this is the kind of setting that we have had over the years. As you can see, really proud of it. Which is great. Good response. Next. Then from the region, supporters, we have the Rockefeller Foundation. Some of you have heard of them, the 100 Resilient Cities Program, the C40 Cities Climate Change Leadership Group. All these folks are involved. 60 design research projects have been proposed by the various folks from China, Philippines, Samara was one of those as well, from here in Indonesia. And it's estimated that these research projects will benefit and impact at least 35,000 people in the population. So a book is published every year when there is this program. So there's a whole sort of list of applications coming out of this. Next. Within the world, so at different levels, these are being acknowledged. The United Nations Habitat, as well as the City Resilience Profiling Program, part of the United Nations Habitat, Urban Resilience Institute, they all acknowledged and felt that this was a very good program, very impactful. And this has been showcased all over in the Barcelona Resilience Team Conference, also at the United Nations Habitat Tree Conference. So this student works and output of these applications are all very well disseminated and acknowledged by the different agencies at the local, regional, as well as international level. Okay. I think after this is a video. I want to show you a video that we put together of the work of the students. It is just amazing.
small fishing village is located in North Hainan province of China. As for economic location, Tropic City is a nearby commercial center. Xixi Harbor Village and other villages mainly concentrate on agricultural and fishery production. Xixi Harbor Village has expressive and rich coastline landscape. Therefore, life cycle of villages is highly connected with everyday climate change. The development of this village is another feature. As sunny levels increase, houses are constructed vertically to the coastline. Currently, as we can see, roads of east-west direction houses are not high-rises. The relationship and feeling of kinship is connected by open spaces, such as empty spaces in between houses and cooperatives. However, a severe typhoon in 2014 revealed the simplicity and crudeness of the infrastructure, industry, and living system in Xinxin Harbor Village. First, we recorded the current systems on the site and drew out the operation diagram. Through adding facilities and reinforcing characteristics of Xinxin Harbor Village, we diversified the village system and increased the tenacity of the village to have more alternatives for many different conditions. We divide our design into 5 systems. Cooperative is the key of industrial system. Different industries have their own cooperatives, and according to the industry distribution, the village could be seen as 4 zones. We organize cooperatives and clarify their identity. And thus, the products will be gathered to the new established river and transportation in the new community. The new established stratified road system will leave the place of production, co-op, and own road system in a paragraph. Fresh agriculture and aquaculture products can be delivered more efficiently to markets. The newly inserted technical school then integrated the river, co-op, and auction plaza, gathering talented people to the village for future training and research. We use sewage collection disposal system, combined with mangrove plantation, to create natural machine circulation system. First, we organized the original sewages. We connected them to the new established sewage disposal tank, and then delivered clean water to the coastline mangrove belts. We moved the interspersed livestock to the mangrove belts, and we used the reclaimed water to feed the animals from the cultivated mangroves. The feces created by livestock are metabolized by mangroves and carried into the ocean, feeding the oyster and farmfish. Furthermore, the waste sludge in the sewage collection tank, as well as oyster shells, are always being used as fertilizer to cultivate farmland. Nevertheless, the oyster shell will be used as building material and disaster prevention. We use hydrogen as an alternative power, inspired by the original linkage agriculture. We use sheep hut and net fishing foundation as combination to design hydroenergy boathouse. Took the average 2-meter high tide level as an opportunity to generate power. It supported the original fossil fuel used in the village. The surplus electricity could be stored as mobile battery and bring back to the village. Following the original housing pattern and harmonizing with new community systems and facilities, new lifestyle formed. After the establishment of the stratified paragraph system, we studied the relationship between paragraph and old unit, and created new housing following similar living logic. The new 80 houses will still follow the east-west direction, which is very close to seashore, but kept the ground level for industry and public usage. Simultaneously, between housing spaces will be raised to the height of paragraphs. The new constructions of previous 4 systems was key resilience when disaster struck. There were 3 steps of disaster prevention. First, the small islands formed by oyster shells demolished the force of the wave. Second, seashore mangroves and oyster shell cage will also reduce the power of waves and delay the time used to flood into the village. Third, on land, villagers withdrew through the co-ops to the paragraph and moved fast to the transport station, finishing the evacuation. divided into four phases. First, the middle axis of sewage collection tank and center industry belts will be established, including the new river and transport station of the harbor. Second, the development will gradually spread into north and south of the sites. Third, both the new road network and the mangrove area are connected and completed. The last phase will be the complete of the new community on the list. The mangrove area will gradually spread from the original boundary to a flourished ecosystem.
Bisa jadi komunitasnya perbaiki kayak cara mainnya, waktunya mau gimana kalau istilahnya orang-orang keluar dari sini ya pantai bisa sambil terus terus analis keamanan itu terus orang di sini bisa cuma berapa This is what makes it such a great field as a professor, right? Oh, that's why the education feel when you see students really engaging in those issues, coming up with really amazing ideas, and to be able to respond to those contemporary needs, just makes you feel so good. That's why I always enjoy doing what I do, to see these sort of results. I'm particularly touched by those hand-drawn presentations. Notice in today's IT world, everybody is using computer, CAD, drawing all this stuff, rendering. These students are doing it. There's something about drawing. There's something about the touch, the feel of life when you draw, which you cannot get from the computer most of the time. And I think we should encourage more of this. When I saw that presentation, I was, wow, I said, this one must be. Because it's so special. Yeah? Anyway, that's what we do. It's all about students that we should prepare earnestly for the next generation. This is what we do. I'm sure you will do exactly the same thing. So next. The report that SDG has been mentioned. Last year, 2017, the Asia Pacific SDG report, you may not be able to read it. This is supposed to be a midterm target. See, the only thing that met the target is the fourth one, education. So I think collectively, in the Asia Pacific region, we are doing something right. That we are promoting this. You see the blue line is across the pathway. Health, wellness, green is just below that, number 3, right? And quality doing reasonably well. But some things we are going backwards, like this whole topic, equity, equality, justice, we actually went backwards. It's quite severe, quite serious. Okay? So how do we change this? I believe it is through really serious and committed, passionate education. That's the only way to change our hearts and minds of the future. Otherwise, this kind of situation might continue to persist. So, education is key, and we are doing a good job. So, please continue to do it. That's all we are working on. I think that's basically it. Last one. Yeah. Thank you all very much. I think we started at 10:30, so we should be able to give you a bit like that. It's okay. Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Lam, for incredible speech. Now, Professor Kum. As the Professor Lam, we have actually 45 minutes, so the time is not lost.
Now, I'll try and speak up here. Okay. Firstly, I'd like to say how happy I am to be here, what a pleasure it is to be this wonderful board, and how grateful I am to have been invited. Some time ago, I had a little bit more boring than I am, but it was really great to be here, and I think you. So, thank you very much for all your do wait here if the microphone goes off or you can't hear it. Is that all clear? No. I should get closer. It's very close. All right. Now, My presentation is going to focus particularly on urban planning and what planning can do, the role that planning can have in the building of affordable housing. Okay, now I have to do price. I'm focusing on urban planning principally because that is my background. I am a professor of urban planning. And I'm aware that this is a wonderfully multidisciplinary forum, and there are people that bring all kinds of different backgrounds to the conversation, and all contemporary problems really need to be dealt with in an interdisciplinary way. So I congratulate you for bringing different people together for this forum. But I also think that urban planning is particularly relevant to the topic of affordable housing for reasons that I'll explain and go into. That really in large cities, you can't get truly affordable housing without focusing on the details of the location and the neighbourhoods around the plan. And that's the concern, of course, of urban planners. So my talk is predominantly from a land use planning perspective, and also, perhaps unfortunately, from a largely Australian perspective. Of course, I'm based in Melbourne at RMIT University, and I've done most of my empirical work there in Melbourne. But hopefully we'll try and pull out some principles and general lessons that we can learn from our experiences, and principles that can be applied to cities and places all around the globe. So, let's see if it works. Yes. Oh. Okay, so Australia, as you know, is quite a wealthy country, but for the last decade or so, the cost of housing in the major Australian cities has become more and more of a public policy problem. And in fact, the media now refer to it as something of an affordable housing crisis, particularly in the largest two cities of Sydney and Melbourne, and homelessness has become quite a big issue, as these photos of central Melbourne show. I might just say for background, for those of you who don't know, Australia is a very urbanised nation, but concentrated into a few large cities. So 40% of the population of the whole Australia live either in Sydney or Melbourne. So these issues are ones that we share with other nations and cities around the world. And although the definition of affordable housing will vary from place to place, the cost of what is considered affordable or not, the problem of affordable housing is really quite widespread. So Australia has traditionally had very high levels of private home ownership and comparatively low levels of renting. So for many decades, it's been around the 70% mark of people who are either buying or owning their own home. But the rate of this has been slowly falling in the last few decades. So in 1991, more than 40% of Australians owned their house outright or paid it off, and another 20%, 27%, were paying wherever the houses were paying off. But by 2016, this had gone from 40% down to 31%, with a greater amount of people paying off their mortgages. And now 31% of Australians compared to 27% in 1991. That might seem like a small change, but the point about figures like that is really that the overall percentage figures don't show that it affects different groups in different amounts. The issue that the media often focus on is the effect of squeezing out younger adults and preventing people who are leaving the family home, getting married or setting up households themselves, trying to enter into the housing market and now doing so at a much later time, or in fact being prevented. And there's real concern that the next generation will become permanent renters. It's very hard for young adults to buy a house without the help of what is known as the bank of mum and dad, And not everybody, of course, has access to parents who have enough finance to be able to help them into home ownership. Also, by way of background, I might say you might wonder throughout the presentation why the government just doesn't embark on a program of building more affordable housing. If there's a shortage of it in Australia. But in fact, the vast majority of our housing is built by the private sector. Public housing was a reasonably large percentage, 50 or 60 years ago. I think the Second World War, there was quite a boom of providing public housing for poorer sections of the community. But now it has shrunk to about 2% of our housing. 2.7% is the figure I had for 2008, but I think it's around that. So it's really only for recently arrived refugees or people with serious inabilities, serious social problems. It's not a mainstream option, really. Controversially, the state government of Victoria, which is the state in which the city of Melbourne is the capital, currently trying to redevelop and refresh some of these old public housing estates that were established in the 1930s through to 60s. And they do it by selling them off to private developers in return for a small increase in public housing. But this is causing quite an uproar because once you've sold them, you don't have any income to them back, and they're often key in the city locations. So another part of controversy. So the problem of housing affordability is not going to be solved directly by the government and the joint entities. It has to be done by the private sector, but government, of course, has a role for directing that. The affordability problem, this is not a particularly up-to-date slide, but it's stark in what it shows, I think. The affordability problem really is most easily understood when you compare the trends of housing, cost of housing to incomes. And for a long time they tracked along together, and then housing has gone up much higher than incomes. And that's pretty clear to see what happens. As I say, it's the last year it shows there is 2011, but by 2016, the 5 years up until 2016, house prices rose by 19% on average nationally, and household incomes rose by 9%. So the trend continues. But what I'm going to say, one of the key messages I want to say this morning, is still on, is that the true cost of housing really is much more than the cost of its purchase, or even the cost of what we pay in rent or payments. So the real cost of housing, in deciding what can be afforded when purchasing or renting a house, really should consider not only the cost of the initial purchase or rent, but what it costs to live in the house. And that's not easy to do, and it's not always so obvious to the consumer. The sorts of things that need to be taken into account are things we've been already alluding to this morning about the costs of heating and cooling a house. And that partly depends on the climate, but a lot of it depends on the design of the house. The other major area that I want to focus on is how much will it cost to travel to and from work, but also to shops and to access all the services that are necessary. So that's where the details of the neighbourhood, the location of the house in the neighbourhood are really important. So both design and location matter for without going into too much technical details about subcategories, it's not my area of expertise, but there are plenty of people here who can talk about this more clearly. But size obviously matters, it's very good for energy consumption. For a little while, Australian houses were getting alarmingly large. There is actually been a slight downturn in the last 5 years in size, but that bottom picture I actually took out of our local newspaper. It was the Energy Development Newspaper. It's actually mad. Showing this houses. So houses need to be heated, cooled, cleaned, of course, and so there needs to be a much more smaller range of different sizes of houses available in location. Also important are things like insulation, the orientation of the building on the site, the types of building materials, and many of them. There's also various systems to measure the sustainability of a house. So a star rating system we have in Australia, for example. But it would be helpful if that star rating system was also able to incorporate the sorts of ongoing costs to show potential consumers actually whether they really could afford it or not. Because research shows that they don't anticipate the costs associated with running a house and also to put all this in a slightly broader context, of course, we need to consider not only women and individuals who are going to live in that house, but also on the wider society. So, although Australia only contributes about 1.5% of total greenhouse gas emissions, our per capita contribution is 4 times higher than the world. We are some of the worst offenders. And residential and commercial buildings are responsible for about 20% of our total energy consumption. So the way we do our buildings is really important. Studies have shown that size, type, and location of housing are the 3 most important factors that determine the amount of energy consumed by that house. And studies have suggested that if you compare the sort of 3 broad types of housing, high-rise towers in the inner city that we're building quite a lot of, our suburban standalone large houses, and the in-between model of medium density, perhaps attached, to a 3-story house. That is the one that is preferable in terms of the most efficient. It's the type of housing we build also. So, location is the other variable I was wanting to focus on. Historically, our older cities, like many cities around the world, the poor lived in the inner cities often. In the cheapest houses or even the slums were often to be found in the inner cities, and certainly that was historically the case with Melbourne and Sydney. But particularly in the last 40 years or so, gentrification and changes to the economy have completely changed this pattern. So the advantage of having poor people living in the centre of the city is at least they still have access to casual or service work and other services. The changes in the economy that see our economy and many others go to post-industrial, relying heavily on knowledge industries and the tertiary sector, has really seen an intensification of higher employment in the central cities, and that has led to price rises all around the centre and inner urban suburbs going up astronomically. So, the effect has been geographically to push the poor to the margins of the large cities, which forces them to travel far greater distances and, of course, to bear the costs of that extra travel. Petrol prices have also been rising a great deal in the last decade, and so, in a sense, it will double whammy for the fringe. When I talk about area and fringe too, Melbourne is a very flat, very spread out city, so the edge of the metropolitan area is 55 or 60 kilometres from the centre of the city. And as I said, when we study what is actually being built at the moment, it's divided into 2 main categories. There's detached, standalone, very large houses on the urban fringe, or very high rise and pretty expensive apartments right in the middle of town. So, the lower income families in Melbourne, the only choice for housing purchases is really in the suburbs which have the same less services and certainly either reduced public transport or in many cases none at all. This graph shows you telegraphically in simple colours. The dark blue being the most expensive areas and where you need the greatest income, and moving out to the red and fringe. So you can see if you want to live close to the city, you obviously need a higher income. So in 1994, households on an average income in Melbourne could purchase a dwelling within 10 kilometres of the CBD. In 2000, this was 24 kilometres, and by 2009, it was 40 kilometres for the average wage. So that is a big change in not a great deal of time. I might say too that Melbourne and Sydney, but particularly Melbourne, have been growing at a very fast rate, partly fueled by immigration. And so many, in fact, that's the chief driver of the population growth. So these outer suburbs are usually the places which become the homes of recently arrived immigrants and largely immigrant families. They're attracted by what looks like fantastically brand spanking new housing, but as I say, research suggests that fairly quickly they realise how far away it is and how expensive it is. So, because, as I indicated, we rely on the private sector to do all of our housing, planning and building regulations are the best means of influencing supply. So if we want a certain type of housing or a mix of housing in certain locations, we really need government intervention to ensure that that happens. Now, this could be simple planning regulations, or it could be other forms of incentive or disincentive, financial penalties or incentives that are part of the planning process. So, an increase in the amount allowed to develop and accomplish certain things. Regulation really is generally needed to ensure that there is mixed housing offered in any subdivision. And by mixed housing, I mean a differentiation in the size, style, and affordability. Because developers, left to their own, tend to specialise in one product and keep doing it. I've previously done quite a bit of work interviewing developers about how they make decisions about what they're building and how much they are affected by planning policies. And they really need to be compelled to change their business model. Just a sort of vague statement of intent by a government is not generally enough to make them change what they're doing. It's a risk-averse attitude that if you've got a tried and true product, you know how to do it, we keep doing it because it works. So we need to get more sophisticated about the way that we affect developers' behaviours. So leaving to the market doesn't make for mixed neighbourhoods. The other big component of a mixed neighbourhood, of course, is to have things beyond just residential development, not just houses, but places for shops and for business startups to occur. In our old traditional neighbourhoods, there are plenty of shops at the bottom of houses, like you can see in the top pictures, and a rental gradient from more expensive to more affordable places where people could start new businesses when they moved into the area. There is actually an issue here that I haven't got time to go into, but another interest of mine has been about businesses started up by recently arrived immigrant communities. And then these new suburbs where the only commercial premises are in a perfectly controlled shopping mall, they often don't get the opportunity because of the rules around opening hours and the rents to start up a business, which they would in an area where there was individually owned and a variety of premises. But that's probably a topic for another day. So, transport alternatives is critical to the affordability of housing. build a new housing subdivision, we ensure that it has essential services. You're not allowed to build a house without electricity or access to it in the form of a road. Electricity is essential, and since the 1970s, we try to ensure all many suburbs are connected to sewers and mains water. Many Australian students are amazed to know that parts of Melbourne City didn't have sewage up until the 1970s, for them it seems so obvious. And certainly many of our small towns don't certain systems and work. Roads are generally built, mostly by the government, but sometimes supplied by private developers. But public transport is not considered essential at the start, and generally is left until there are enough people living in a place to make it more financially viable, and that is a real problem. Developers deliberately space out the development of a new suburb because they don't want all the housing to come on the market at the same time. It's a better model for them, both in terms of the capital required to build it slowly, but also in terms of not flooding the market and bringing the price down. They tend to build things in stages, so it takes a long time to start a new suburb to get a population that's viable for a bus service. The problem with that is that the residents who move in have no choice but to buy one car, two cars, etc. Many of them, those with older children, will have three cars. And by the time there is some alternative provision, their habits are already set, and it's hard to get them to change their behaviour. So, as I said earlier, in Melbourne, some of these suburbs are 55 or 60 kilometres from the central business district. Now, not everybody works in the CBD, but there are very few jobs out in the far-flung suburbs, so they more likely than not will be working along the highway. So this could mean several hours of commuting each day. This has multiple effects on health, and on family life, on social connections. Obesity is a growing problem in many countries around the world, but certainly in Australia. And time that could have been spent on socialising or on preparing healthy meals at home is often spent sitting in a car. And this has a significant impact on quality of life. Some of my colleagues at RMIT did a 5-year study of a new residential development 55 kilometres from the centre of the city, which was really designed to try and mitigate some of these, try and be healthy as a lot of working parents probably found there. They interviewed people before they moved in, after they'd been there for a short time, and then several years after. Some of the results of theirs shown there in terms of while 73% were satisfied with their public transport before they moved to the estate, haven't got the details of where they were living, this fell to just 16% when they first moved in. They were of course unsatisfied because there was almost none there. And then, even after 3 years, when a bus had been introduced, still only 42% of them were satisfied. They found that 1/3 of residents commuted for more than 1 hour each day, and more than half of residents with long commutes reported that they had gained weight since moving into the estate. So there was actual evidence of health impact because of the lack of transport. So currently we build new suburbs with houses and little else. Even if we now understand the importance of health, the importance to health of walking and active transport, and we're putting in footpaths into these estates, there's nothing to walk to in many places. And even the shopping centres are often delayed for some time after the new estate is built, and often they have very minimal things to do there other than to just purchase, not a great deal of other services or provision for social interaction. The latest plan for Melbourne, released a couple of years ago now, Strategic Metropolitan Plan for Melbourne, brought in this concept of the 20-minute neighbourhood. There were several versions of this planning document. A change of government meant it got revised and reissued. And the concept of the 20-minute neighbourhood was discussed and modified as it went along. For a while, the idea was that you ought to be able to access everything you needed within a 20-minute journey. The final version doesn't include employment in that because it was really too difficult to think of how to build in this vast metropolitan suburban area, how it would be possible to achieve the idea of only a 20-minute trip for most people to the workplace. So this version says that you should be able to access the goods and services, essential goods and services you need within a 20-minute trip, and preferably by walking or cycling in some form of active transport. I might say as an aside, in Melbourne we have been, I think, very good at making strategic plans, like the latest document, which is called Plan Melbourne Revised, not terribly fair title. What we're very poor at is implementing them. And I've got plenty of studies and evidence to back that up, but we know what we ought to do, but doing it is the very difficult thing. So, there's plenty of evidence that new suburbs need to be built at sufficient density to encourage walking in order that there be enough other things to walk to. So shops and services will only locate if it's financially viable for them to operate in that environment. And if there's simply not enough people in the catchment area, they can't do it. This report is by a team of excellent researchers at RMIT led by Professor Billy Giles Portai, who has been working on healthy livable cities for many years now, and I encourage you to seek her out if you're interested in this topic. So she and her team published quite a lot and based all their work on really good empirical studies. So she maintains that you need at least 25 housing lots, 25 houses per hectare. That might seem like very low densities to people coming from Asian cities. But for many years, the average density in Melbourne across the whole area, not in some parts, was 9 lots per hectare. Currently, it's government policy to try to get to 15. So 25 is really quite a step up. Certainly the inner suburbs of Melbourne and Sydney are at that level, but not the ones where created. So planning policies for our cities have to focus on diversity provision. And as I say, it's not only density, but it's the other things there that will encourage people to work. The other things that are really important for planning policy, I think, in terms of getting affordable housing, inclusionary zoning, which many countries around the world, particularly United Kingdom, has been doing for a long time, include, and that is compulsory components of affordable housing in any large subdivision. We are just dipping our toe in the water in this regard. To try and get a proportion of 15 or 20% of affordable housing within any large development. But it's an obvious thing to aim for, and there's no reason why developers can't just budget for it if it's can't do their finances for it to make it happen. The Planning Institute of Australia also calls for affordable housing targets in any area rather than the compulsory nature of inclusionary zoning, but we don't even have that currently. It's important, of course, that the housing has to be based on quality urban design as well. So, stopping unsustainable urban sprawl has been a goal of planning for Melbourne and Sydney for a very long time, but for some reason it doesn't seem to be achieved. it still remains very attractive to developers who want to provide new housing, partly as a form, I think, of past dependency. This is the model they've been doing for a long time and they want to keep doing it. But also, of course, with urban fringe land is cheapest, particularly if its previous use was rural. If you bought it from a farmer, then you'll be paying a lot less per hectare. But also, we have quite extensive rights to object for neighbours. So if the only neighbours to a new housing development are a bunch of cows or sheep, you'll get a lot less objectors. So that's another attraction for developers, that they don't have to deal with the whole negotiating with the neighbours problem. So as I've been arguing, it's only cheaper out there really if you consider the initial purchase price, and that there are hidden financial costs and considerable social and environmental costs. And we need to find a way of making those much more visible to potential purchasers and to consumers. Unfortunately, the imperative to reduce environmental impacts and our burden and contribution to climate change has really been outweighed by the imperative to provide affordable housing, and social and health impacts have been ignored. So that trade-off has been a poor choice, I think. It's increasingly evident, I think, in the context of climate change and increased energy costs and the skyrocketing of petrol prices, particularly, and electricity prices, that the notion of affordability really needs to be reconsidered. So, just to finish up, I think this is a problem that there are a few problems I suppose here that I've highlighted which hopefully resonate with people around the room. One of them is about how you make the private sector do things. Australia inherited the British and European system of planning, but many European countries and Britain itself still have far more authoritative and interventionist planning than Australia does. Australia really bought the deregulation model a couple of decades ago, became very interested in allowing the free market to do whatever it likes, and it's very hard now for us to rein that in. There's all kinds of dimensions to that, to do with political power as well. Tropic for another day, I think. So developers now shape our cities, and the timing and the nature of services, increasingly they have influence over that too, and it's something that we need to think about. I don't think it's good enough, I don't think it's been working, and with the challenge and indeed the coming crisis of climate change, it's becoming far more important to consider the tools we have to improve the way we build more housing. I hope that short glimpse into what we've been doing in Australia is useful to think about some of those other things that go into making housing affordable. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Goodman. I would like to invite everyone to come to the stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will open the discussion session. I will invite into rounds if our time allows. So, the first one will be given to the first three participants. Please mention your name and your affiliation and to whom your questions will be addressed. So, please, if anyone has something to discuss with our speakers. Okay, you began. Okay, and then okay, that's it. So the first is to who began.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will address my question to Dr. Tom, the professor. It's quite interesting to hear when you explain about Igbo and the Tropic housing in Indonesia as expression of the local wisdom. But what I want to, when you want to consider we have to implement the organization, always the modernization is always the innovation in the material and also technology. Then my question is, how far we can conserve wisdom, the local wisdom, and also the modernization. It should be balanced. And it is also still rely on the historical resilience. Because we want to conserve the house, as mentioned by Professor Robin, that if we want to conserve the house, we have to concern with how much the cost to live in the house instead of the cost of that building. Thank you.
Anyway, I will give over to the second participant first. So we have to collect the questions. So it will to conform to our theme of common equality and equity. So the second participants is please mention your name and your village and to whom your question will be addressed.
My first question goes to the first speakers. There are some slides about education in Semarang, is it? I wonder what is MUS doing in that area, especially to have that resilience of perhaps perhaps I missed some of the information, but I was wondering what the MUS doing in that a special location in Semarang for implementing that resilience city concept. That's the first question. And on the second question of the second speaker, in the urban frames of Melbourne, he said, in theoretical understanding, is it so much different with how we differentiate the urban frames and rural, or perhaps you can explain more. We have this concept of desa kota. Desa is rural and kota is urban. But when I was there, I feel like it's so much different. And perhaps if you can clarify that, then some of your presentation will be much more clearer to us how to implement that principles that used to us. Thank you.
Sorry, what's your name and your village?
My name is Vivi. I'm from Institute Technology Bandung.
Thank you very much. And the last.
Thank you. My name is Brent Overstein from the University of Waterloo, and my question is for Professor Lam regarding the Resilience Symposium and the idea that when students come to the symposium, should they already have worked on a project that has elements of resilience built into it? Or is it a type of symposium where students are given a project to work on in a short 3-day period in a multidisciplinary series?
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for Professor Lam to respond to the questions of our participants. Please.
Maybe I'll answer the question first, short. The students, the competition is announced beforehand. And the site, and this Kali also answer the question, how do we decide, right? What are the topics, where the site, And this is actually through the committee. There is a committee that represents, as you can see, the different institutions who would sort of propose a site and some challenges that are existing in that particular site. And the committee then decide, this year we will do this site, next year we will do another site. And the students then do the work before and they submit the presentation, they shift it over actually. And then on the day of the symposium, the judges will meet and have a critique with the students, and then they select. So the topics and was really discussed among the committee. Right now, as you can see, represented by folks in Australia and also in Indonesia and Thailand. So we like to grow that, of course. We have more engagement with different universities from the region, especially. So that's why it's a call to whoever is here who is interested to actually participate. As to the details of each of the site, it is really presented by the host town, the city. They collect the basic information of the local conditions, the maps, the plans, the idea, and then they put it into the design brief, the competition brief. And then the brief is then sent out to everybody to participate. Okay, so that sort of answers that part of partly the other question as well. Then coming to this question, it's an interesting question. We have come to expect certain images of development. I was talking about smart cities 2 weeks ago. And my picture of the smart city is high-rise, lots and lots of lights, digital graphics spinning all over the sky, no people. So we are so caught up with the idea that development, advancement needs high-rise, curtain wall, lots of glass, lots of bright lights, and lots of advertising. And we build taller and we build bigger. Somehow we are caught in that, and it's so difficult to break. Because when we talk about tropical design, especially in our region, we know absolutely for sure those typologies do not work. It is highly energy inefficient, highly uncomfortable. To me, the stupid thing is that you spend more money, spend more energy, and still suffer. To me, that's a lose-lose-lose situation. So the call for going back into the principles can actually generate new ideas. I have a whole series of lectures about postmodern contemporary indigenous architecture that look, feel, and work right and right. I briefly mentioned in London as well our newly completed net zero energy school building in the US. If you look at that building, I didn't show it today, it's so different from the United University building. We really built it with tropical concept. If you look at it, it's really very nice. We just won an award, a global award, so people believe it's good. And it doesn't have to be all enclosed in a glass box. Because somehow that is the image that we keep getting developments. As what sells. We've got to change that trend. And my hope is that we change the idea from the students and that they can now see good examples of successful contemporary houses and contemporary commercial buildings that are adhering to those principles. And believe it or not, they do work out economically better from the point of view of first cost as well as operation cost. Our net zero energy building is a government building, so we cannot take a lot of private development. But we got it done, right? That's because a lot of taking a lot of design accommodate better by, the importance of critical thinking and critical design is what makes it work. So I think that there is many, many good examples. We just need to keep sharing those examples of success and not be dominated by the perception of developers in general sense. So I think that.
Before I answer the question directed to me, I'll just reinforce that I think the actual building models to show the development industry what can be done is sometimes the only way to do it. One of the pictures that I showed, which I didn't point out at the time, was in a relatively in a city. It's about 5 or 7 stories high. A model that was built by the government 8 years ago now, which has 25% public housing, 25% subsidised rental, and 50% private ownership. So it's a model of mixed tenure, but it's also an environmental model. So it's built in pods and stacked together, and it's much higher ratio actually properties than anyone very handsome and some actually visible. But that was built deliberately by the government as a means of showing what different building techniques were also different to the private sector. It hasn't been implemented, so I can only do what we can do. The question to me was about the difference between rural and metropolitan planning, I think, in Australia and in Melbourne. Firstly, I preface it by saying that Melbourne has the vast majority of all the population in its surrounding area. In Melbourne, we are a terribly urbanised place. It's nearly 5 million people in the population of the state. 6 or 7. But what we did in 2002, we put a hard growth boundary around the edge of Melbourne, sort of emulating the one that's been around London for many decades, to try and stop the outward spread. And then the rural zone land beyond the growth boundary is not available for subdivision. So we've tried to do it through the planning system to say this is where housing will go and you can't get it. The reason to do that is partly to protect the rural areas of agriculture. It's one of those ironies that cities are often found in places where with great agricultural land, because that's why people live in the first place. And then we build all over our most fertile and as the city grows, and that's what's been happening in Melbourne. 25% of the vegetables for southeastern Victoria, Australia, are just on the outskirts of Melbourne. And then we building housing level. So we're trying to separate them out. We don't have much success in trying to build populations out of the city and getting people to go through the cities. It's been another one of the sort of planning stories in Australia, trying to get people to decentralise, and it never seems to work. And more so now, there's a lot of discussion about the changing nature of work. And for example, if people can telecommute work from home, would that mean more of them are happy to live away from the central cities or big cities? But that doesn't seem to be the case. People still like the social contact of big cities, and even if they can work from home, so they can go home. All these are complicated and long stories, but I hope that explains slightly that we've zoned the land differently, so we're not doing subdivisions in rural areas. It has a minimum of subdivision of about 1 hectare, and the lot is less than that. We're not going to subdivide with the second.
Thank you, Professor Lam, Professor Good. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I was reminded by the committee that we are at time, so I have to conclude this session. If you still have questions, I hope that Professor Lam and Professor Good are willing to respond to this question after this session. I'm really sorry that I have been reminded by the committee that our time is up. I'm really sorry. This is my apology. So I will conclude this session and let me summarize the key findings from Professor Lam's and Professor Goodman's presentation. Professor Lam raised issues about the adaptability and the key point that we have to adapt. And he also pointed out that the changes are always there. And the third issue is that what are our contribution to our environment. And he also highlight about the total building performance. And the last thing he present the design resilience in its initial process. And also Goodman present important finding about housing affordability from student perspective. And he also presents the defining effects of home ownership rates, which is 18 to 39. And she also emphasized that design of housing is plays a pivotal role. And she also highlighted about heavy reliance on private sector for housing provision. This is therefore the role of government in planning, including mixed-use neighborhood, is necessary. And the last one, she also presents something important regarding the transport alternative. There are some relationship between transport and the other issues. If I'm not mistaken, that there's increasing rates. This is my we have explained why I'm getting this. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give big applause to our speakers and to our partners. And I will return the stage back to the committee. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Boleh tepuk tangan sekali lagi yang mulia. Professor Dr. Lam Ibu and also Professor Dr. Robin Goodman, please stay on stage because we will witness handover placards. Will be given by Bapak Profesor Dr. Insinyur Arif Sabarudin CES. Ya, kami silakan Bapak Profesor Dr. Insinyur Arif Sabarudin CES. Garis panggung. Will given placards to all the keynote speakers for today on the 5th International Seminar on Tropic Settlement. So we have your time. And continue for taking a picture. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, give a round of applause to all the guest speakers for today and the board. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite you to enjoy the lunch. The buffet is already open to all of you at Breeze Resto, once again at Breeze Resto. So please enjoy and have a great lunch. And after lunch, we would like to inform you we have presentation of call for papers or parallel session in 4 classrooms. In 4 classrooms. And about the place, class A will be held at the Ballet Kuta.
Class B at the Balai Banjar, or this room, main room. Class C on the third floor at the Balai Pasiban 3, and Class D at the Balai Pasiban 4 on the third floor. And about Class A, first station is a group about sustainable urban landscape. The second section is about urban spatial equity. The third section is about urban slum area, and the fourth section is about urban spatial equity. And next, on class B, is about for session 1 until session 4